Hi everyone, in today's video I'll be showing you how to draft a basic bodice pattern. This pattern can be used to create a variety of wears. I use CM in drafting this pattern because it's a lot easier for me to approximate. To know the width of paper to use is your bust measurement divided by 2 plus at least 8 to 10 cm. While to know the length of paper to use is your shoulder to your half length plus at least 8 to 10 cm. So the first thing I'm going to do is to draw a line measuring 4 cm. So I'm going to be ruling 4 cm on this side like this straight down, and I'll also rule 4 cm on this side straight down. The 4 cm mark is just to serve as a border mark for us to begin all our measurements. I just tilted my paper just so that it's easy for me to mark. Because I noticed when I didn't tilt the paper, my head was blocking my measurement. So you guys would not have been able to see that. That is why I'm tilting the paper and marking the 4 cm. Now we're going to call this point 0. Point 0 to point 1 is your back body length. My back body length here is 47. So I'm going to mark 47 here. So I'm going to write 1 here. If you have a set square, you should use your set square to square out like this. But for the benefit of those that do not have a set square, I'm just going to measure my back body length this way, and draw a straight line across it. So I'm measuring 47 at this end too, just to get a straight line. Point 0 to point 2 is bust measurement plus 6 cm divided by 2, and when I divided mine is 59 cm, because the bust measurement I'm using right now is 112 cm. So this is 59 and this is my point 2. Now I'm going to measure this same length I have here from 0 to 2. I'm going to repeat the same measurement for point 1 to point 3. So I'm going to measure 59 cm here too. Then this will be my point 3. So I'm going to connect from point 2 to point 3 like this. The only reason I don't like using a marker, which would have been more visible for you guys to see, is because I cannot erase. If I make a mistake, I need to start afresh. So that's why I'm not using a sharp. Okay, so this is point 3. The next thing we're going to do now is to measure 0 to 2 and 1 to 3, then divide it by 2. So you know when we drew out we had 59, so I'm going to say 59 divided by 2 is going to give me 29.5. so I am going to mark 29.5 here. I'll also mark it here just because we're trying to get a straight line. Then we're going to connect it like this. So this is going to be our center front and this is going to be our center back. Point 0 to point 4 is our bust measurement divided by 4 plus 1 cm or plus 1.5 cm, it depends. At the same time you can decide not to add 1 cm or 1.5. so mine is 29.5. most times what I've noticed is that from point 0 to this middle line gives you from point 0 to point 4. So for instance, from here to here is 29.5. and from 0 to 0.4 now is 29.5, but it's not compulsory you arrive at this, but I have noticed that most times that is what I usually get. So 0.0 to 0.4 is 29.5 cm I got. I'm going to repeat the same measurement from 0.2 so that I can get 0.5. So I'm going to be marking 29.5 here also. Then so this is 0.5. Now I'm going to connect with a straight line. So this is my armhole line. 0.2 to 0.6 is our neck circumference divided by 5 minus 1 cm. The neck circumference here is 43 divided by 5 is going to give me 8.6 minus 1 cm is going to give me 7.6. So this is 0.6 here. 0.2 to 0.7 is just our neck circumference divided by 5. So remember, our neck circumference is 43 divided by 5 is 8.6. So we'll measure from 0.2. 8.6. So this is going to give us 0.7. Now we're going to measure 1.5 cm inward of our pattern. So this is 1.5. I'll just draw a line on this. Then I'm going to connect from 0.6 to 0.7. The reason we're just drawing about 1 cm or 1.5 is so that our neck can be slightly rounded instead of having a sharp V or a sharp point. So I'm connecting with my curve ruler. 0.0 to 0.8 is neck circumference divided by 5 minus 0.5 cm. That would be 8.1. So this is 0.8. 0.0 to 0.9 is back body length minus nape to waist. The back body length I'm working with is 47. The nape to waist I'm working with is 44. So I'll say 47 minus 44, that is 3 cm. So this is 0.9. Connect from 0.8 to 0.9. 0.2 to 0.10 is our shoulder to bust point. The shoulder to bust point I'm working with is 36 cm. Okay, so this is 0.10. Now I am going to square out. By squaring out, I mean draw a line across, a horizontal line across. 0.10 to 0.11 is our bust point to bust point, and the bust point here is 24. So you say 24 divided by 2, that will be 12 cm. So I'm going to measure 12 cm here. So this is 0.11. Now I am going to square down from 0.11. So 0.2 to 0.12 is our front cross shoulder divided by 2. And our front cross shoulder here is 41. So if we say 41 divided by 2, that will be 20.5. So I'm going to mark 20.5 cm here. Then I'm going to square down or come down by 4 cm. So this is 4 cm right here. Just do this. Then I'm going to use a broken line to connect from 0.12 back to 0.6. 0.0 to 0.13 is our back cross shoulder divided by 2. Our back cross shoulder is 43 divided by 2 is going to give me 21.5. So I'm going to measure from 0.0 my 21.5. Okay, so this is my 0.13. So at 0.13, I'm going to square down by 3.5 cm. I'm using my set square to do this, but you can use your ruler. And I'm going to connect from there to 0.8 using broken lines. To get 0.14, you have to divide your shoulder length by 2. The shoulder length I'm working with is 15. 15 divided by 2 is going to give me 7.5. And you have to measure on this slanted line. So you're measuring from 0.6 to this slanted line. So this is 0.14. Now, to get 0.15, you're going to say your shoulder length divided by 2 minus 1 cm. So my shoulder length divided by 2 is 15 divided by 2, 7.5 minus 1 cm is going to give me 6.5. So I'm going to measure 6.5 cm beginning from 0.14. So this is my 6.5 cm right here from 0.14, and this is my 0.15. Now I am going to connect from 0.15 to 0.11 like this, and I'm also going to connect from 0.14 to 0.11. To get 0.16, you have to measure from 0.8, and you have to use the measurement of your shoulder length divided by 2. So shoulder length is 15 divided by 2 is 7.5. Just make sure you are measuring on the slanted line from 0.8. So this is 7.5 right here, and this will be 0.16. 0.16 to 0.17 is 1.5 cm apart. So this is 0.17. To get 0.18, you have to divide the distance between 0.16 to 0.17. So 1.5 cm divided by 2 is going to give us about 0.75. Okay, so you're going to measure 0.75 at the middle here. Then once you get your 0.18, you square down by 8 cm. From 0.18, square down by 8 cm. And you draw your dart leg. Now this is 0.19. In order for us to get 0.20, remember this is 0.19, so to get 0.20, I'm just going to take this weight off it. Then I'm going to switch my paper just so it's easier for me to fold without obstructing your view. So I need to create a fold or a crease at 0.14. So now I'm going to put one finger at 0.11, fold my 0.14 onto 0.15. Then I'm going to use a sticky tape. You can use a masking tape or any tape you have that you can easily take off when you're done. I'm just going to use a sticky tape to hold this temporarily. And I'm going to repeat the same thing by folding 0.16 onto 0.17 by creating a crease before I fold. So fold point 16 onto 17, but make sure you put one finger on point 19. So ignore the fact that your paper may not be laying flat. It's because of the fold. Now that we have our dart tape down, we're going to get our shoulder length. Our shoulder length is 15, so you're going to measure beginning from point 6 here. So we're going to mark 15 cm because that was the shoulder length I measured on the person. And when you're marking, make sure the line you're going to draw this time is a straight line, not a broken line. Okay, so you're drawing from point 6 to the shoulder length, and this will give you point 20. Now to get point 21 is the same thing. We are also going to measure. We are going to measure from point 8. You're going to measure your shoulder length. The shoulder length I'm using for this person is 15 cm. Make sure that when you are placing your ruler from point 8, it meets with this area where you have your fold. So this is point 8. Then we'll mark 15 cm. So make sure the 15 cm touches this fold you have here. I'll take the ruler out on this fold you have here. So ignore the fact that this broken line is not touching point 21. It does not matter. What is important is that you got your actual shoulder length. So this is point 21 here. To get point 22, we're going to measure from point 2 to point 5. Mine is 29.5. So if I divide 29.5 by 2, I'm going to have 14.75. So I'm going to add 1 cm to 14.75, and I have 15.75. So from point 2, I'm going to mark 15.75. So this is point 22. Now I am going to square out from point 22. On line 22, we're going to get our front cross armhole. Our front cross armhole is 39 cm. We'll divide it by 2 and it's giving 19.5 cm. So when you get your front cross armhole divided by 2, make sure to add 0.5 cm to it. So plus 0.5 is 20 cm. Now I'm going to mark 20 cm right here. So this is point 23. Now to get point 24, we're going to measure point 0 to point 4, divide it by 2, then add 1 cm, which is basically what we did for point 2 to point 5. So from point 0, we're going to mark 15.75 here. So this is point 24. Then we're going to square out also. Now we're going to measure our back cross armhole. Our back cross armhole we have here is 43 cm. That is what I got from the person's body. So we'll say 43 cm divided by 2, that will be 23. So when you get 23, make sure to also add 0.5. So that will be 23.5. So I'll mark 23.5 on line 24. So this is point 25. So now this will be point 26. That is the same line as your armhole line. So before I connect this curve at the armhole area, I just want to bring something to your attention. Sometimes when you're about to connect the back cross armhole together from the shoulder, you may discover that you do not have a good shape at the armhole, and this could be as a result of either the person has excess skin at the back cross armhole area, or it could be that you measured a bit into the armhole or the armpit, and you can always correct that. Once you notice that the curve is not giving a good shape, you can always readjust it by measuring 1 cm. So you can readjust it from a range of 1 cm to 2 cm. And this same thing can also happen in front too, so you can also redo that adjustment. Then another thing you can do is to check your shoulder length and see if the difference here is so much. If it's slightly more, you can reduce it by 2 cm or 1.5 or 1 cm. And it's the same thing too. Some people's own, you may need to increase instead of reducing. So make sure that the difference between here to here and the difference between here to here is not so much apart. I know usually for people that do freehand, they can use the same measurement, but if you're using pattern like I am doing right now, the difference between here to here and here to here should be about maybe 1.5 cm or 2 cm maximum. It should not, this place should not be less than here to here with more than 2 cm. So I'm just going to be using a faint line to do this, just so that you can understand what I mean. Okay, so right now my pattern looks funny. I know you may not see it as I am saying it, but I can see that it looks funny. So what I'm going to do is just to slightly reduce here by, let's say, 1 cm. Then I went ahead to create my new armhole line using my curve ruler. So make sure that your curve is touching the end of point 26. Now I'm going to erase this first line I drew. So for the front, we're going to connect from point 20 to 23 and 26, but at point 26 I usually like to measure between 1.5 cm to 2.5 cm. 1.5 on 2 cm. Okay, this is 2.5 too. So now I'm going to connect, and this is just a guide, so it's not really a do or die affair, but this is just a guide, and this is just to enable you have a nice blend. Then I'm going to connect to touch at least one of these points I have drawn, because I do not want to connect to the exact point. I want it to lay flat before it gets to the end of my point 26. I went ahead to use the pattern master to create the curve, and this is what it looks like. I took out the sticky tape from the paper so that my pattern can lay flat. To get point 2 to point 27, we have to subtract our back body length from our front body length. The back body length I have here is 47, and the front body length I have here is 52. Now I'm going to say 52 minus 47, that's 5 cm. So I'm going to mark 5 cm here. Then I'm going to square down just to get a straight line. So this is 27. Now I'm going to connect from point 27 to point 1 using a slanted line. So you know our front body length is usually longer than our back body length, and the reason for this is that we have bust at our front, and at our back we do not have anything there. So for some people, their front body length may be longer than this 5 cm I just did. For some people, their front body length may be shorter than this 5 cm I just marked. This depends on the bust. So if you have a fuller bust, you are going to have a longer front body length. If you have a smaller bust, you are going to have maybe a shorter front body length, or you are going to have just what I have here. So it's the bust that actually determines your front body length. So don't be afraid, don't get worried if you have a longer front body length than I have here. It's fine, provided you took your measurement well on the person that you're drafting the pattern for. Now from point 27 to point 28 is the same measurement as from point 10 to point 11. So your bust point to bust point divided by 2, then you mark it here also. Just because I extended my line so much, that is why I do not need to remark this line. So the line is already here for me. So this is my point 28. But if you don't have this line right now, just repeat your bust point to bust point measurement divided by 2 and mark it here, or just draw a straight line down to get point 28. Now we're going to measure from point 1 to point 27. What I have here is 59.5 cm. So I'm going to write bust measurement 59.5 cm. Now to get the waist measurement, is the actual waist measurement you measured on the person's body. The waist measurement I have here is 103 cm. Now we'll say 103 divided by 2, that's 51.5 cm. So this is 51.5 cm as our waist measurement. Now we're going to subtract 51.5 cm from 59.5 cm. So 59.5 minus 51.5 equals to 8 cm. So 8 cm is going to be our total suppression. So this is our total suppression, 8 cm. Now we're going to share this 8 cm between our front dart, our back dart, and our side seam. But just make sure that when you're sharing this dart, the front dart should be slightly bigger with at least 1 cm more than the back dart and the side seam. So if you are very good with mathematics, I'm sure you can just look at this number 8 and just be like, oh, the front can have 3 point this, the back can have this, the side seam can have this. But people like us that we have to like press the calculator, write some figures down, it's going to take us a couple of maybe 2 minutes to get it figured out. The first thing I usually like to do when I have a number like this is that I like to share it. So I'll give this 3 cm, give this 2, give this 2. So 3 plus 2 is 5, plus 2 is 7. So it means I have 1 cm. Now I will need to spread that 1 cm between the front, the back, and the side. So you just watch me press my calculator. So this will be 3.4, 3.3, 3.3. Let's do that again. 3.4 plus 2.3 plus 2.3, that will be 8 cm. So now let's see if our front dart is going to be bigger than the back dart and side seam with at least 1 cm. So 3.4 minus 2.3, 1.1, so it's fair enough. I can work with 1.1 cm, so it means the front dart is slightly bigger than the back and the side seam. Alternatively, we can say 3.38 instead of 3.4. I can say 3.38 plus 2.31 plus 2.31. That's 8. So let's see if we subtract 3.38 minus 2.31. So that's 1.07, which is not bad. Okay, so we'll leave it at 3.38. At the end of the day, it's not going to be noticeable. That is the beauty about CM. You see these lines? Most times, no matter how the addition is, it's not going to be obvious compared to if it's inches. So our front dart suppression is going to be 3.38. Now we're going to say 3.38 divided by 2 is going to give us 1.69. You're going to mark 1.69 to the right to get 0.29, and you're going to mark 1.69 to the left, or 1.7, depends, it's not going to be obvious, to get 0.30. Then we're going to connect the lines. To 0.29. So this is going to be 0.31 at this side seam. So this is our side seam area, 0.31. Now our side seam suppression here is 2.31. 2.31 divided by 2 is going to be 1.15. So we're going to mark 1.15 to the left and to the right to get 0.32 and 0.33. So this is 0.32 and this 0.33. Now I'm going to connect from 0.26 to 0.33 and to 0.32. Okay. So to get 0.34 here, we're going to measure from 0.1 to 0.31. What I have is 29.5. Now we say 29.5 divided by 2, 14.75 is what I got. I'll say minus 0.5. That will be 14.25. Now I'm going to mark my 14.25 here. Then I'm going to square. So this is my 0.34. I'm going to square by repeating the same measurement that I have here. So 14.25, just for accuracy's sake. Mark it here. So you can either square or draw a straight line to meet both points. Okay, so to get 0.35, remember our back dart is 2.3. Now we say 2.31 divided by 2, so that will be 1.15. So this is 1.1 here, and this is 1.1 here. So I'm marking that on each side of my dart leg. So this is 35 and this is 36. Now we're going to connect. So this will be 0.37. Now we're going to reshape our dart, because if you cut your pattern out like this, without folding your dart leg is not going to align. You find out that when you're sewing, one part is going to be shorter than the other part. So let's fix that now before we cut the pattern. The first thing that I'm going to do is just to move my paper. I'm moving it because I do not want to obstruct your view by putting my head forward. So I'm just going to move my paper. So now I have created a crease here at point 29. You always want to fold the longer dart leg. The dart leg that is longer is what you should fold to the shorter one. So you can see that our line is slanting right now. So you want to fold this longer dart onto this one, this longer dart onto this one, and you want to repeat the same thing for this longer dart onto this one, this longer dart onto this one, because the line is slanting. So you must create a crease, that way it's easy for you to fold. Now I'm going to put one finger at point 11. This is my point 11, just in case we do not remember. Here, then I'm going to fold 29 onto 30. I used my tracing wheel and curve ruler to redraw or reshape my dart leg. Then I use a pencil and a straight ruler to make it more visible. But make sure that you repeat the same process for all your dart legs, including the ones at the shoulder. Once you're done, make sure to write the date, the name of the person that owns the pattern you drafted for, label your pattern, and please retrace this pattern after you cut it out on another paper. You can see how difficult or how time consuming it is to draft a pattern. So I always like to have duplicates. So make sure you have duplicates after you cut out this pattern. I hope you enjoyed the video. If there's anything you think I left out, please let me know. I'll be in the comment section. Thanks for watching and have a great day.